up, everybody? This is Nick, and you're joining us once again for a Pull Up a Chair podcast, a PUC Podcast, the flagship podcast of this little network we call the Pull Up a Chair Network. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host and friend.
Oh, this is Eric. Sorry, I literally zoned out because of our topic. I was looking something up.
Okay, Eric.
What's up?
What is our topic? Since you are apparently too busy to pay attention to what we're doing and just going off into your own little world.
Yeah, apparently.
Down the rabbit hole, if you will.
Man, I chase nostalgia like mad. So what we're talking about is, last week we talked about Flash. If you were like in the late 90s, early 2000s, we talked.
You ran around and you showed people your body out of a coat. I know, sir. We talked about that.
We have. That's why I was
still not socially acceptable.
Well, that's unfortunate. Well, we talked about Adobe Flash and the rise kind of in our lives of Adobe Flash and different old shows and games and the various ways in which Flash was utilized to make interesting sites and entertainment
right
on the internet. And this week we're taking a little bit of a different journey.
Which that was a fun podcast.
That was a fun podcast. In fact, I've thought about it quite a bit over the past week, just kind of going over my head going, man, I just feel like we barely scraped the surface of that.
Well, and really the last few ones, in my personal opinions, have just been fun to talk about because we had Flash, then before that we had Calvin and Hobbes.
That was a good one. I loved the Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah, I mean,
podcast.
it was just been some fun podcasts. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm getting off on a.
So now we're moving towards a different way of viewing content off the internet, and
that's stealing it.
That's basically theft.
Yeah,
and it's the rise. We're going to talk a little bit about
the rise of the pirates.
Peer-to-peer networks such as Napster and LimeWire, and moving towards BitTorrent or torrenting. And kind of where that kind of falls in our lives, and what it is, if you don't know already, is it's kind of like, it's not peer to peer. It's like, it's a little bit different, but it's a network where you can share files.
If you don't know what it is, Eric's about to let you know, and how you can do it. How you too can go out into the world of piracy.
Well, we'll get there.
Because how did I get into it? Well, that's my good friend Eric. Well, he led me down that path.
Well,
thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Quit her. Dang it. Stop. So we're going to start kind of more near Napster and that. So Napster was like the first, well, not the first by any means, but one of the most well-known peer-to-peer file sharing services created by Sean Fanning. If I remember, he was only in college. Was he only in college when he created that? I
believe so, yes.
If I remember, I'm just going off very old knowledge. I think he was an engineering student. I could be completely wrong. However, Napster kind of service operated between June of 1999 and July 2001. Then before it got messy. But before that, there were other internet distribution methods such as IRC, which is an old school chat client you could chat with. In IRC, let me click on it so I know can say Internet Relay Chat is what it stands for. Everyone, I just know it as IRC. When you signed up for IRC, you just got a number, and it was a 1-up number. So like the person signed up before you had the number before you. The person that signed up after you had the number 1-up from yours.
Right.
And that's all it was. And that's how. So you knew people. If you old school people into chat memorize their IRC numbers, probably still know them to this day. I know Gus Sorolla off Rooster Teeth, he knows his still. I want to say mine was somewhere in the 30,000s or 300,000s. I cannot remember. Maybe 600,000. I know it was like 3 or 6 at the beginning of it. I remember that. That's the best I got. I was never really too much into chat. Like IRC, you connected to different networks, if I remember right. They could be a kind of like a network talking about different kind of themes or topics, and I can't remember all about IRC. We can look that up. And
by the way, you said Sean Fanning, but it was also he had help from a gentleman by the name of Sean Parker too.
Oh, okay.
Both of them, one of them, Sean Fanning, is a 79 baby.
Oh, it's my age.
Or I'm sorry, Sean Fanning is the 80 baby, and then Sean Parker is the 79 baby.
So they started that in 99. In 99, I was a freshman in college. Mm-hmm. So he started that when he was 18. 18
Yeah.
or 19.
Well, yeah.
That's pretty.
In 99, no, you would have been 20.
Oh, it's true. I would have been 20, 19, 20,
Yeah.
depending on the time.
So, yeah, he would have been 19 or 20 years old. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. So now we're going to kind of move. There was also Hotline and Usenet. Is Usenet still around? USENET.
I'll look it up.
Okay. Well, I think it's more of a protocol, isn't it? It's been around forever. That's beside the point.
It's still around.
All right. I never got on that, but Napster specialized in MP3 files. That's kind of where they got their start. And
that's what it was known for. That's what everybody knew it for.
But what the Seans did was the interface for Napster was way easier to use. That's really where they got their niche. One, it's MP3s, super good file structure for sending across networks, and secondly, it had a really, at the time, a very nice interface where you could. Here's a picture of it.
Are you saying they kind of came up with the MP3?
No, they didn't come up with MP3s. MP3s were, I can't remember what year. There's one dude that made MP3s. I can't remember his name.
Oh, really?
And I feel like it's a disservice because that guy literally changed the nature of music.
He really did. But
I just can't remember who it is.
Honestly, Napster was the first place I knew of MP3s. It was, they kind of came, I don't know, it's just something that came very popular all of a sudden. Because before that, everything seemed to be in WAV format.
Yeah. MP3s were created by Moving Picture Experts Group, but I think it was like one dude that was primarily. MP3s are from 1993. They've been around since then, so it's an open format for containing digital audio. So I'm not an audio engineer by any means, so I'm not going to get into that. That's way above my head. But yeah, Napster became it went. I hate to use the word viral, because that word didn't exist then, but it went mainstream, I guess. It became, everyone knew about Napster. Now, what happened was, where Napster really got its hold was on college campuses, because back in 1999, very few people had high-speed internet other than people who lived in dorms on campuses. Campuses had implemented high-speed internet or in the process of it, or just had at least internet connections, but mostly high-speed networks in college dormitories. They became overloaded. As much as 61% of all external network traffic consisted of MP3 file transfers.
Were you working at Oklahoma, at OU, when this was going on? Because didn't you have some problems with that?
What year did I start?
I don't remember.
Well, I didn't get to OU until 2001, 2000 or 2001. I'm gonna say 2001.
Okay.
I think is when I got there. I think, man, that's horrible. I can't remember when I got there, but 2000 or 2001, I showed up. Yes, I remember that this was an issue.
Yeah. It seems like you and I would have conversations about this.
So this was a big deal when we were going to college. Napster became such a big deal that it was on mainstream news quite regularly about how what.
Oh, well, that Sean Fanning made the cover of Time magazine.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Wow. I don't recall that.
But I just read it here. I read that he became so popular because of this, or made such a name for himself here, that he made it even on the. That's a big time magazine, big time cover to make it to, especially back in that time period.
You know what year he was on there?
I'll look it up again.
Okay. Well, the thing is, I was part of this culture. So I am not a huge music person, but when you're given the keys to nearly infinite music, you start finding it. At one point, I myself had cataloged, I want to say it was somewhere between 5,000 to 10,000 songs on my computer at the time, using Napster, or what else did I use? See, once Napster came on board, there were other interfaces to peer-to-peer networks. There was LimeWire, which if you wanted a virus, that's where you went. What year? 2000.
October 2nd, 2000.
That's insane.
He was on the cover about Napster. It says, "What's next for Napster?"
Yeah, Napster was huge. Everyone used it. I don't know how he made any money on it. Maybe he put ads in the interface. I don't remember. But LimeWire was a competitor. I didn't get on LimeWire because that was like Virus City. There are a couple other, one called Kazaa, which that's the one I used a lot. If I didn't use Napster, I used Kazaa. Also, eDonkey 2000, which I think I downloaded once. Scour, Grokster, Madster, Nutella, Freenet, BearShare. These are all peer-to-peer networks that use their own IDEs, interfaces to attach to. Now, it's pretty crazy. Napster had a huge rise in their usage. It is unreal the amount. I remember at one point people were like, they were saying half the use on the internet was just Napster. That's just, if that was true, I don't know. But on college campuses, at least where there was a high speed available, 61%. That's insane, man. That's absolutely insane.
Well, people were just taking advantage of what they had available to them, because I remember people, they were just filling up their iPods or their music player with.
Yeah. What was the RCA had an MP3 player that was early on. When did the first iPod come out? Do you remember? Because that's a real good correlation there to go, hey, the rise of the Apple iPod, which I know was in the early 2000s, but I can't remember when it was. You had your sweet, what was your little pocket thing?
You're talking about the Palm Pilot?
Your Palm Pilot. Could it hold any music?
Well, my friend, let me tell you about the old Palm Pilot. It could, and it did.
Oh, yeah?
It wasn't a lot. I didn't get the lot of storage on it, but it had a little bit of music. I had just this little no-name one that I used to listen to back when I was in college, that I listened to MP3s on. It was just a little, all sorts of companies were coming out with these things, but it was just a little one you plugged into. I think may have been Sanyo brand for all I know. I think
is this it? Seha? Saehan?
It wasn't the Sehan.
Sehan information. That's the first MP3 player that came out in portable MP3 players. What we're talking about specifically, that came out in 1998. So I was just trying to get a list of the MP3 players, because you think about it, you had access to an infinite amount of music, and if you were like a real into a specific genres, which there were certain genres I really got into a little bit, and I downloaded a lot of artists out of those genres, and I would listen to artists that I would never normally listen to, just because I was access to them, because I think you could see what was like the most kind of downloaded files, or like,
right,
and I would just grab those also.
Well, and I knew people that were in bands. There were kind of no-name bands that were putting their music out there for free just to get people to download it.
Yeah.
And they actually got hits. Like it actually, well, not like number one, but they actually got people to download their music.
They got exposure.
Yeah, they got exposure, and it kind of helped some people. And of course, obviously later on, people, those poor music artists who were barely scraping to get by, they had to put an end to all the fun.
That was the problem, was all the bootlegging that was done. So someone would drop an album, and within just minutes of dropping it, it would be out on a share. It would be on Napster. It would 100%. Would you download anything else off Napster? Napster had other stuff other than music. What else did it do? Video?
I don't think it did.
Did it just do MP3s?
I think it was just music.
I remember getting others. Maybe it was Kazaa. I remember I used Kazaa, and I could get some other software.
I think Kazaa did do movies.
It did movies and TV shows. This is obviously before Netflix or anything about streaming. There was no such thing as streaming on the internet. Is insane. The stuff you had to go through to find entertainment off the internet.
you would start a download for a show.
Expecting to watch it next week.
Right.
But at your leisure, you watched it.
Right. Or you started it right before you went to bed and were like, well, I'll look into that a week from now.
Yeah. Or if you got lucky, if you're on a college campus, you'd be like, I'll watch it tomorrow. And that was with high speed. So, yeah, but that is what didn't. I don't know where I was going. So that is what we're kind of getting towards tonight. Now let's move past Napster and Kazaa and all the other peer-to-peer networks, and we'll get into BitTorrent.
I need to just, before we move past it, April 13th is the anniversary of when Metallica sued Napster.
Oh, and that's what started it.
That's what started the downfall. That was
you want to go
back in 2000, so that 18 years ago?
18. You want to go through the downfall of Napster? Just real quick. So, Metallica sued them, and then that pretty much spawned every other artist to sue them, probably a class action lawsuit of some sort. And what happened after that? I remember they shut down Napster. They just shut the servers off, right?
Well, didn't they? Yeah, they shut it down for a bit, but they were going to try to do like a paid service that failed miserably.
Yeah, that failed.
Because people had already abandoned ship when they went silent.
Well, yeah, they shut down. It was a year or more. So can you find on here the shutdown? Let's see. We're looking through the best place to find any notes on anything, and that is Wikipedia. So I don't really see. They shut down in July 2001. Napster shut down its entire network, July 2001, and on September 24, 2001, the case was settled. Napster agreed to pay music creators, copyright owners, a $26 million settlement for past unauthorized use of music. All right. So Napster 3.0 was former Napster employee ready to deploy.
Do you remember when this was going on and there was like this whole thing? People were worried that cops were going to... I knew people that were worried that cops were going to come for them.
For downloading.
Like,
oh, yeah.
Somehow they knew that I downloaded
They were
this
tracking
song.
you.
Yeah.
We always... Well,
and there were all those stories about somebody's brother or somebody...
Oh, yeah.
They know a friend that was arrested.
Yeah, and had to pay a fine or...
Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, so they shut down the servers July 2001, and by then, Napster was pretty big. I mean, I don't know how many employees it had at its company, but the employees banded together. A couple of Napster 3.0 alpha using the .NAP secure file format that was created. Fingerprint tool. The Napster employees were ready to deploy it, but it had significant trouble obtaining licenses for distributed major label music. So they were trying to turn into a legitimate service. And on May 17th, 2002, they announced the assets were acquired by German media firm Bertelsmann for 85 million. The guy created something in 1999, and by 2002 he sold it for acquired for $85 million, with the goal of transforming Napster into an online music subscription service, which at the time was unheard of. Did you know of any other music subscription services at the time?
No.
Napster was kind of the first thing I remember of that personally.
Right. And now it's like a thing.
Now it's it's a real thing.
Yeah, this is something that has become... I mean, they tried to do something that I guess was before its time, and it just failed. It failed because... Well, and I think a little bit had to do with the backlash of what... People were scared of the name Napster there for a little bit.
Yeah, you were afraid to use anything Napster. Now, that changed. You told me that a major company changed their name.
Oh, yeah. Well... Napster's brands and logos were acquired at bankruptcy auction, which is very strange to...
That is weird.
Think about. In 2011, by Roxio. Sorry. Which used them to rebrand the Press Play music service as Napster 2.0. And then... I'm sorry, that wasn't in 2011. Or sorry. Napster was purchased by the U.S. electronics retailer Best Buy in the U.S. for $121 million. And then on December 1st, 2011, pursuant to a deal with Best Buy, Napster merged with Rhapsody.
And I knew Rhapsody.
Exactly. Well, I had Rhapsody on my computer.
Yeah, Rhapsody was a pretty hard. I used Winamp.
Wasn't it? Yeah, it was like Real Player Rhapsody or something.
Yeah,
like they
that.
changed it.
So yeah,
and then Rhapsody. So they obtained it in 2011. Well, then on July 14th, 2016, Rhapsody phased out its name for the brand of Napster.
So Napster still exists.
Napster lives on.
I'm going to type in the word Napster, and I go Napster home, us.napster.com, and Napster it's still here. It is a music subscription service, play unlimited music, or business is music to power your brand. I don't know what that means.
Well, and even when they were changing over, Rhapsody put same music, same service, same price, 100% the music you love, stay tuned. That was like their catchphrase. And they had the little cat. You remember the little
with the
cat
headphones?
With the headphones.
That's a great logo.
And yeah, it is. And they said Napster is coming.
That's insane. So brand that from 99 to 2001 ruled the internet, literally took control of the internet with most of the traffic, is still alive almost 20 years later.
Well, and
as a legitimate company.
It made the company, it was still so popular, and people still joked about Napster and they still talked about Napster, but it was still so popular internationally even that Rhapsody saw, okay, this name is more popular than what we've been trying to push.
Yeah.
And so they
just took it.
They just took it and ran with it. So yeah, now Napster is a thing once more that, and honestly, I didn't know it was, but
me neither.
It's a thing once more of something that we used to know as Rhapsody.
That is insane. And Rhapsody was not a small name either.
No.
I knew Rhapsody. All right, we need to start moving forward.
But this kind of gave rise to something else that you started to hint at before I drew us back to that. But you were talking about music share or movie sharing. Movie sharing, yeah, and the rise of torrent.
Torrent, yeah, torrenting. Now that's still around. BitTorrenting. There's a lot of really popular BitTorrent websites. Isn't Pirate Bay still around?
Yeah,
Pirate Bay still around. What was another one? What is it called? It's when you take an image of a hard drive, what is that called? ISO. ISO. There was one called ISO something. ISO torrent site. That's the one we used to use to download.
There was also
ISO Hunt.
There was also Kick Butt torrents.
I don't remember using that one.
It wasn't Butt. It was the other. But since we're a family friendly.
Oh yeah. I remember that one. Okay, so the popular now. So for torrenting works different. It's a shared network. So whereas in Napster and different peer-to-peer services, you would connect to one other computer and grab the file from that one computer and pull it into yours. Well,
that's the way IRC worked, right?
Yes, they were all direct downloads.
I remember you could get movies, whatever, music and everything from
IRC. Yes,
IRC.
But you would have to get it from one person. If that person went offline while you were downloading it, you were out of luck because it was going to corrupt your file because it didn't have file recovery.
Right.
And however, BitTorrent didn't have that problem. It's a distributed system, so you can grab bits and pieces of files from multiple different users on the network, and all like a torrenting site has is a file that has a hash in it and some other information, and that tells you it tells your torrenting application where to look for it on the network. And that's kind of a real simplified, dumbed down version of the way BitTorrenting works versus peer-to-peer networks. Now, Mini Nova torrents with ending in a Z, I mean, these are sites, I guess, that are still around. And I used these a long time ago. ISO Hunt, Pirate Bay, Meganova, BitNova. Man, I used all these sites. So Easy TV. I loved Easy TV. So once I found out BitTorrenting, which I just told you a little bit ago before we started, who taught me how to BitTorrent? That was Rooster Teeth. Rooster Teeth, the people who make Red versus Blue. One of their early episodes, they switched to BitTorrenting so they wouldn't have to host a file somewhere, which would cost a ton of money.
Right.
They put it out on torrent so people could. Torrent is much safer than just direct file sharing because the hash that you download hashes the file once you get it, and it determines if it's been modified. So once you make a torrent file, it gets hashed. You throw the hash out there on the network, and it's way safer. It's a way safer of downloading files. Hashing today is pretty much how you check that a file is legit. But so Rooster Teeth, one of the old OGs on the internet when it comes to media, originally making Red versus Blue, which they still make, and now they make a number of shows. They put Red versus Blue early episode, season 1, probably episode 3 or 4, maybe earlier, maybe 2, I can't remember, out on torrent to share it because they couldn't. It was cheaper. It's because once it's out on the torrent, it's pretty much people are utilizing their own network to share your file. Now, there's a mechanism in torrenting where it says you have to share at least, to be on the network, on the torrenting network, you can't just download constantly. You have to share your files.
Right.
Because it ranks you. And if you start seeing that you are not sharing your files, it will cut you off the network.
And Eric, do you know who taught me how to torrent?
Who taught you, Nick? What nefarious scoundrel taught you how to BitTorrent?
My good friend Eric.
Oh.
It was a gateway.
It's a gateway.
A gateway internet thing that led to more.
Well, torrenting even today is huge. What did you torrent in the early days? In Napster, it was all music, and torrenting obviously escalated.
Well, early days, I mean, I would download because you kind of showed me Rooster Teeth. You introduced me to that, so I downloaded some of the Red versus Blues that way.
Yeah.
Also, I may have got a program or two.
Oh, application stealing. Well, I'm trying to think, what applications could I have potentially stolen if I was to steal entire versions of Windows? No one wants Windows ME, but so like a version of.
Why not have it though?
Windows 98. Was it second? Whatever.
Special edition or second edition.
Second
SE
edition
or whatever.
SE, whatever that was. What else was downloaded a lot? I'm a huge fan of anime, which I don't talk much about on here because I am assuming no one wants to listen about anime. Because who does? But I downloaded anime.
Stay tuned for Eric's
nonstop.
Anime Hour.
And that's not happening. I feel inferior. I have only watched a couple 100,000 hours of anime. I am nowhere near an expert. So
Eric's Anime Hour coming this fall from the Pull Up a Chair Network.
Yeah, I downloaded Dragon Ball Z, of course, the old school Dragon Ball Z stuff. I can't remember. That's where I got
next time on Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, pretty much.
Goku and Frieza yell at each other. You can't do this. Watch me.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
your Frieza's pretty good.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't like to brag, but yeah.
Your English version of Frieza.
I watched about 15 episodes of that same
conversation.
Conversation. So
your English dub version of Frieza. The Japanese voice is like crazy sounding, in my opinion.
Of course, there's always the classic over 9,000. Anyway.
But I downloaded a ton of anime. Also, that is what brought me with my love of streaming video. Because I don't have cable. The moment I could get any streaming service, that's pretty much where I tended. In fact, I gave up cable before streaming services were really any good. I was part of Redbox, what's it called? Netflix, back when you got the discs. I mean, that's once I could start getting discs, I was like, that's way better than anything else. And that's what I started to do back in 2000. When did 2004 for sure, whenever Netflix started. But before that, I just downloaded everything, every TV show. In fact, a site I previously mentioned called Easy TV, that's the site I used because it did a great thing where you could say, hey, I want to download the new episodes of these shows when they become available. And it would send your application an RSS feed. You could update the RSS feed of when they became available, and it would start downloading them before you're like, oh, watch out for the new episode of this or the new episode of, I can't remember what I watched back then, but get these new episodes, TV shows, the moment they become available out on the Bittorrent network.
You had like a whole scheduler thing.
Yeah, I used Easy TV's RSS and then like a plugin for whatever. I can't remember what torrenting application I used. I was really big into torrenting. I spent like even with Napsters, like I said, I had 5,000 to 10,000 songs. I maybe just 6,000 or 7,000 songs, but I had a bunch of songs, more than I could ever listen to.
Well, you also had access to a pretty fast network.
Well, here's the thing. Now, yeah, I lived with a bunch of guys and we had high-speed internet at our house. Also, where I worked at the time had ultra high-speed internet because we were kind of attached to the backbone of the main network because what I did while I was in college. And I would work on the weekends a 12-hour shift on Saturday and then an 8-hour shift on Sunday. So I had 20 hours of time on Saturday and Sunday doing nearly nothing. I sat and babysat large-scale mainframes. Yeah. I sat in a climate-controlled room and literally sat and listened and watched these systems, and it was loud. And
well, I remember calling you sometimes on a weekend. I was like, hey man, what you doing? You're like, I'm waiting for this thing to download. Like, I'm going to be watching a show here in probably an hour.
Yeah, I would get movies. I watched movies nonstop. In fact, remember Signs, the movie Signs?
Yeah.
It was on BitTorrent without the CGI in it yet. I watched that before it came out in theaters. And that was pretty common to see stuff before it came out in theaters.
You watched it without the CGI, so you just saw some guy dressed in...
Sometimes not even that.
Rawr.
It was weird because you see a scene and you're like, this isn't scary at all. And once I saw the real movie, I was like, oh, okay, that's all CGI stuff.
Wow, that adds a whole new level.
It did. It really did. So I did that. But so here's what I did. I downloaded I can't remember. It was an anime of some sort. I want to think it was a pretty popular anime. I don't know. Trigun. I can't remember. It was a really popular anime at the time. And this was around 2003-ish. And I downloaded it, and on these torrenting clients, you can throttle how much bandwidth you're using because they don't want to just take over your computer. Well, what I had done on a Saturday, I was downloading some stuff, and I throttled the bandwidth, which I kept it throttled, but I took the throttle off so I could download faster. Because I was like, the throttle for it was for both uploads and downloads at the same time to kind of incentivize you.
Right.
To spend more of your bandwidth. They kind of paired that together in this application. So I opened it wide open, infinite, take it all, just so I can get my movie or stuff in. Because I was on a backbone system. I could get in the information faster than probably 100 or 1,000 computers could send it to me. And so I sat there, I was like, I just opened it. I had forgotten I left that open when I left at night. And I downloaded, I want to say it was something popular. Crazy popular. Left, came back the next day. My boss was there going, something's wrong with one of our computers. And it had consumed something like 90% of the traffic for the company, for the company business's bandwidth for the entire organization. It was consuming one computer so they shut that computer off the network. And they were trying to figure out what happened. Well, they never connected it. I didn't know if they knew it was me. I was a really good employee, did a lot of really good work. And so they left me alone. And we had some other employees that weren't so good, and I think they got blamed for it. But they never told me specifically that. But I never got in trouble. I was
And those
stressed
people just
out.
disappeared and you never knew.
No, nothing happened to them either. I think they got a talking to.
A stern.
That's it. Yeah, it was that. They're bad management, really bad management where I was at, and I was like, okay, and the guy that they probably got blamed on literally didn't care. He did not care at all. Whenever I worked with him, he would come in 2 hours late, take a 2-hour lunch, and leave 2 hours early. So he was only there like a little bit of time.
Nice.
He was one of those kind of guys. And because he had zero supervision.
If you're out there listening, I respect you.
Well, it's like, because I worked 12 hours, I'd see these guys, because that place had to be staffed 24 hours a day.
Right.
And so people worked first shift, second shift, and third shift. And on the weekends, I handled 2 of those shifts. And on maybe Sunday, they wasn't fully staffed. I can't remember. So that's what happened. And that was my story of how I after that, I took off all my software, but I did check all the stats, and I had shared so much of that one file. It was that one show. I wish I could remember what it was.
You're like, all of a sudden I was ranked number 1.
Oh yeah. And sharing, I was ranked number 1.
Were you really?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
No one was close to me, because yeah, you could see who was the top sharers. I was number 1. My account was, and I got rid of all that. I was done from there. I just did it from home. And I was at times scared I would get caught. And because I knew, didn't that happen to you though? Didn't your internet get shut off at your dad's house?
No.
What was that one?
It didn't get shut off. I got sent a letter, an email from
our ISP?
The ISP from, I don't remember which one we had at the time. Anyway, they sent a letter because I had downloaded, you ready for this? Jurassic Park.
I remember you wanted the roar.
I wanted the roar for a video I was editing, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I was like, I'll just get the movie and take it out of there.
Yep.
And sure enough,
because ISPs did watch that. Now, how did they know what you were downloading? I can't remember how they did that.
I have no idea.
Yeah. Oh, I know what it was. And clients later on. Oh, here's what it was. So what ISPs in different industries, what is the music one?
Napster.
No. Like the industry that's like, hey, you're pirating music. It's like,
oh, hang on. I'll get that.
Yeah. So what they do is they'll run torrenting engines and download the torrents also and see who's connecting to them. And they'll have to know your network and your IP, obviously. And then they send information to your ISP saying this IP was downloading this file because MPAA is like, they're doing the same thing. They're downloading it. They know what files are out there to be downloaded. They see what you hit. They'll take it and send a notice to your ISP. And so whoever was sharing Jurassic Park out on the network, they were logging your IP and your and they tied that to your ISP, and they knew what file you were downloading because they were sharing it. That's how that worked. Now, what also?
I'll be honest. I thought I was going down that day, Eric.
They had plugins. They have plugins now because people track all the IPs for the government, MPAA, every studio, and they put them on ban lists. You can get a list of all the banned IPs, like all the IPs that these companies hold, and they're kept up to date really currently. And so they'll always, if you install that plugin, it would force you not to connect to those IPs.
But sometimes those are the fastest IPs.
Those are the best, right?
Man.
Or also you can use like a third party. There's also like third party routing IPs, so you could, but they're much slower because they're routing through other distant servers. Kind of like what's it called? A VSP, virtual private system. Network VPN. And what I'm talking about. VPN right there.
That was something that was. I mean, it was. You didn't really think much about it, but then, I mean, obviously, it was a big deal. I mean, I guess what's probably the most popular one right now? Probably torrents are still.
What are you talking about?
What's the most popular like file sharing?
I mean, BitTorrent. What client? Like the thing about BitTorrenting, it doesn't matter what client you use. You're doing the same thing. You're usually all on the same network. Whereas on peer-to-peer, Napster only worked with Napster. eDonkey 2000 only worked with eDonkey 2000.
Which that is a great name, by the way, eDonkey 2000.
It's so dumb. And like Kazaa only worked on the Kazaa network, whereas BitTorrenting, as long as you have a torrent client, I think you get access to everybody's, as long as you're using the same file, like the file that you got your hash out of.
Right.
That's the file you're downloading across all networks. It's one network. It's really just, from what I understand. So that's it, man. That's it.
That was a trip down memory lane. I'll be honest. I hadn't really thought much about Kazaa or any of those. Napster's the one you always heard about. Of course, torrenting was a big thing. You had the Pirate Bay, of course, is the big, I don't know what you call it, kind of the big...
Pirate Bay's been shut down a bunch. I think they have a lot of like this piratebay.nz, piratebay.
LZ.
Here's Pirate Bay Alternative. Oh, these are just alternatives. Pirate Bay still up? What is it at right now? We're at, oh, come on. Give me a break. Piratebay.org was founded in 2003. And that's all I got on that one. So 2003, I know it's been shut down and stuff been done to it, investigated.
People got arrested.
Did they?
Yeah, because I remember there was a point where I went there and there was like a whole deal about...
The FBI shut it down.
Yeah.
I remember that because there's this screen that if FBI shuts down your website, it's the same dumb screen you get. It's like a little block that says this site has been... And it has like the FBI seal on it. And so let's see here. The investigation following the raid was finished in 2007, and 4 individuals with the Pirate Bay are being charged with assisting copyright infringement. Was taken to court in the fall of 2008. So, but what they did is they took Pirate Bay to a bunch of... They got it off .org or .com or wherever it was, and now it's like .nz, .jp. There's a whole bunch of them mirrored across the world.
Right. And they found ways around it.
Basically, yeah, they're in countries that they don't care.
You can't stop them.
Okay, yeah.
Pirates, you just can't, because they took to the high seas there.
They took to the Pirate Bay Atlantica. So, but yeah. All right, Nick. Well, wow. This is in my opinion has flown by, and I feel like I have spoken a ton,
buddy. Well, I mean, you had more of a... Yes, I did my fair share of downloading, but you honestly, I think, did more than I did until much later. But I mean, you introduced me to many a thing to download things from. But everybody, we took you to a time and a place that you can go back to, that a time when the internet was like the Wild West. There was no law. You could download music without consequences. You could download and watch movies without consequences. You could get a program that was pre-hacked and put it on your computer without any consequences.
We didn't even get into Mega Upload.
Well,
did you ever use Mega Upload?
I never used Mega Upload, but I don't know that we have time.
We do not have time to do Mega Upload, but it was... have you ever heard of a guy named .com? What is his name? Kim.com. He was the founder of Mega Upload, and that's what I transitioned to after BitTorrent. I went to Mega Upload.
Well, it is. I remember when he was he arrested or he was being hunted or
taken down by the U.S. Federal Bureau of FBI. Took him down in 2013. And man, we don't have time to get into this. There's quite a bit to the Mega Upload story in .com, but it was based out of Hong Kong, and it was pretty intense. But that's after BitTorrenting. It's a video sharing, and I stopped BitTorrenting, and I would just go to Mega Upload and search for the TV shows, because they'd be up there within an hour.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
and I didn't ever realize that.
Yeah, they were up there so fast, and it was just like Photo Bucket or Image Shack, Tiny Pic. It was just a site to put stuff, but it was for videos. So I don't know. Is Mega Upload still around?
I don't know. That's a good question. But let me just say this to our listeners. If you want to take our podcast and if you want to, I don't know, put it out there, share it with some people, guess what? You won't get in trouble.
No, we'd love you to.
We would love for you to go out there and just put it out on a torrent, put it out on put something in there about how they can find us. And Eric, tell them how they can find us.
You can find us all over this internet. We're not even on the dark web. We are on the light web, but you can find us on YouTube.
Web light.
You can find us on YouTube. Just search for Pull Up a Chair Podcast, and our podcasts are there if that's easier to listen to them or whatever reason you want to go to YouTube. Also, you can find us on Facebook. Just go to Pull Up a Chair Podcast. Each podcast should be posted there. You can also find us on Twitter at Pull Up a Chair Pod. And I think we tweet out when we have a show go up, don't we?
We do. It actually puts something out there about, like, watch our show.
Yeah. So if you want to follow that and know when a show's released, typically Monday shows are released at 4:30 a.m. Central Time. And what else can you find us? You can find us at our own website, pucpodcast.website, pucpodcast.website.
And you can also find us wherever you're currently listening to us.
Of course, or iTunes, Pull Up a Chair Podcast. And if you feel like giving us a wonderful like or stars or whatever on iTunes, that'd be great.
I mean, we get hearts every once in a while on an episode of Podbean.
Podbean, yeah. You can heart us on Podbean.
You can heart us there, but you know what we prefer? We prefer stars over on iTunes. Just if you're hearting us, go over to iTunes, leave a 5-star review. Tell them Nick sent you.
Yeah, tell them that.
All right. Well, everybody, we appreciate you going down memory lane with us. You know what? We appreciate you going and torrenting us, letting us go out in the world around us and, just share it with everybody. Well, Eric, once again, we've come to the end. We thank everybody for listening. We hope you have a good day.
Bye.